Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Astrology and Beyond. I am Tatiana, also broadcasting for ANN Archetypal News Network. Today, it's the last of 2024. So I will be sharing the astrological forecast for the Capricorn Solstice, so December 21st, into the last days of the year as the energy begins to close, moving into winter, into the time of reflection and inward emotion, and how these energies will carry onto 2025. I will do a much more extensive video on that. So I'm just going to focus on this time of wrapping up. It's a time of possibly wrapping up lots of cycles because what opens up in 2025 may be something that we've never, ever, ever could have imagined possible. So let's leave it at, let's not, let's leave it at, it's a holding. It's space for holding and for holding space for yourself. I think that's kind of the main key point for this part of the closing year. I will be also sharing a lot of my own personal insights and process and development because this is how I can best exemplify for you what to do when energies hit you, especially when they hit you really, really hard. And I have been a little bit low key. That's why you haven't seen so many videos and just integrating a lot of of what moves through me and within me. And I have been doing some deep dive into other types of archetypal work, namely a lot of the Gene Keys work. If you don't know about it, Richard Rudd, it's a fantastic body of work that ties in with astrology as well, and human design, and it's all kind of the same family, evolution of evolution of evolution of things. And but in essence, everything that we can pick from the archetypes of our collective psyche, it's what we are really dealing with and what we actually see in the world. So, with respect to that, this is why I will invite you to very deeply, deeply contemplate what's going on in your life so we can understand through the archetypal movements of our stars how to really better work with that so we're not just playing out the old same old same old same old. Really, it's a time for self-responsibility. So let's look a little bit at the chart for this solstice. Again, I'm going to be probably just saying a lot of sharing a lot of our my own insights and things that come through. So whatever you take, and what you don't take, you don't take, and that's perfect too. Whatever resonates is what's important. So, the last days of December is the Capricorn solstice, and the solstice time. Usually, all these points are almost like portal times, uh, and the winter solstice is, like I said, is the time where things are really needing and wanting this inward inward reflection. And that's why, at least in the Northern Hemisphere, everything kind of goes to sleep. The gardens goes to sleep, things go to sleep. The sun is low and it's I mean low. Yeah, it is kind of low, but also it goes dark earlier. So it's almost like a true invitation that we also do the same. And I cannot stress this enough because our modern societies keep us going, 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 going. And then there's things and this and that, and then the parties and then da da da. And it just never stops. So this is very important at this time to really, really do that. So, first thing we have move. Oops, what happened here? So on the 21st of December, which is our winter solstice, I'm going to spend some time kind of weeding this out. So we have the sun moving into Capricorn, and the sun in Capricorn really is about uh, it's all the Capricorn energy is about responsibility, about focused, uh, goal setting, groundedness. It's the long-term goals. It's an earth sign, it's feminine. So the sun moving into Capricorn will kind of put us back there into that wintry space of how do we build something when we have challenges. It is ruled by Saturn. So as you can see in my Capricorn image here, it's the seagoat that comes from the bottom of the ocean all the way to the top of the mountain here. And everything that has been built through this slow and steady pace. So this is a basic understanding on when these energies come through is to understand that our cycles are really all based on the observation of nature and how things naturally progress. And this is why we have here the winter, the spring, the summer, the summer, the fall, and how how these natural cycles have a way to them. And when we're grounded in reality and what we have around us, it's much more easier to slowly and steadily implement things in this dimension. So now what's going on with the sun, the first thing we notice is it is squaring the nodes, and the nodes our North Node in Aries and South Node in Libra. We have talked about this extensively, but the North Node in Aries is also almost going to, it will very soon, 2025, cross over to Pisces. And then that for 19 years, we won't be seeing these themes anymore. So the themes of the Aries and Libra axis are really kind of being completed and evolved where to move into new themes. So, and this is really important to understand that the tension that the sun on this day with these 2 points hold, it's to it's the fulfilling or the desire to fulfill personal goals and what's important for our own development in what we want to accomplish, and also the karmic pull of being it's like the people pleasing. Then how do we function with it within a structure, a societal structure where there's people, where there's multiple universes coexisting at the same time, and how to within this framework we move into our own direction without being completely cut, because Aries might suggest we're just going for our thing, our self-expression, and Mars right now being in Leo and retrograding means that which is the ruler of the North Node at this time, there is a really an emphasis in where have we been putting our energy, and how as individuals are we being truly fulfilled within the action, or have we been using our energy not in the best way, not in the way that it aligns with our natural gifts, because natural gifts are obviously always given, shared, and expanded. When we're forcing things, frustration and anger can occur. And now we have been talking about the Mars opposition Pluto as well, which can create enormous amounts of deep frustration and anger that could just be expressed in the world without consideration, and brutality and war and all of that. And if we're not really aware of why that anger comes up individually and how we have been frustrated in our own individual paths and our own desire to be free. This is very important, sensing how our freedom is tied to our heart's desire. That's the Leo energy. And as we move into as Mars moves retrograde, there is this deep sense of reviewing and seeing where our energy really needs to go so that it's not frustrated, because otherwise it just expresses as anger and it just explodes. So at this time we might be feeling kind of stuck between again, our personal goals, what we want to accomplish for ourselves, and then the relational dynamics with people that we've maybe been involved with for a while. It could be our partners, it could be communities, it could be friends, it could be any groups, anything where there's people involved, any kind of relationship. And that can be really, really hard at this time because there is a need for really grounded action in order to um, to to manifest what we want. At this time, we also need to see where we have given up too much of ourselves and maybe not noticing that we were not working with the natural energy. We were forcing. Um, so this is going to be a a very interesting time of reflection. And with respect to this, I wanted to bring a little bit of what I opened up today in the Gene Keys book. I opened it up on Gene Key 39, which is uh it's the tension of transcendence. And it's interesting because I do have this Gene Key in my own profile. So it was very interesting to see how the themes really correlate very particularly to the Pluto-Mars opposition and this dynamic between the Aries Libra polarity as well. So I wanted to read a little bit of this. Um, uh, so rooted in no, let me see. I won't read all of it, but I just want to see. Okay, rooted in your adrenaline system, this 39th gene key is a highly dynamic code that is all about action. It has a gusty, explosive, and primal quality to it. You know, like the Pluto Mars is exactly that quality. It's the primal quality of energy and action and will and willpower, right? People with these gifts and shadows are not led by their heads, but by their primitive urge to act, whether wisely or foolishly. You can see from both the repressive and reactive sides of the spectrum that it is a dangerous shadow with which to cross paths. It is rooted in the fear of being trapped, which is essentially the fear of losing your individual freedom to act. We all know how dangerous animals become when trapped, and we humans carry that same fear in our ancestral DNA. There are many reasons why humans can be incited to violence, but here we find one of the oldest reasons of all, the threat to individual freedom. And as we can see, this is what we've been also witnessing in our world. And when Pluto moved in Aquarius, we're starting to see also the changes in our societal structures and this push and pull of the falling of imperial systems that are still trying to dominate. And what happens is the more the people are pushed and pushed to comply with the heaviness of systems that are no longer providing that natural space for individual growth and individual freedom, then what happens? This old age-old thing, it is trapped in our ancestral DNA. So this is why I bring up this particular piece of wisdom, because acting out of our repressed natures of the anger of our ancestry is only going to perpetrate violence and war and violence and war and violence and war. And this is something we might be seeing in the world stage. So instead of being a bystander, just watching the news and wondering why there's all this chaos and this ugliness being showed in the world and these threats of war here and there, or how things are getting more and more polarized, and then with elections and this and that in different countries, and it seems like the chaos is really, really big and the anger is mounting, and then there's fear and a bunch of other things, and then just come back. Let's just come back to this essential understanding. It is old as time. When a village had food and the other one didn't, and then they, you know, It would just go like, oh, uh, I think it's just a basic survival mechanism, right? But in the reality, all of us humans have this beautiful capacity to share and to share of our gifts and our being when there's an understanding that we are really truly one essence. So whenever I'm attacking something or someone, I am in reality attacking myself. So from this perspective, I wanted to share that. And another piece of wisdom that I wanted to share is from uh, this card deck called Twin Flame Ascension by Dr. Harmony and art by myself. And I pulled this card today as well. It's remember your identity. You can do it. So I kind of paired it with this other wisdom. I I sometimes do resort to the some of the tools I have around me to gather more insight. This doesn't mean that this is the answers to all. I'm just saying that this sometimes is very in like really in tune with the current archetypal energies. So I'm going to read you this. Your quest for fulfillment requires an exploration of your inner self. The goal is for you to discover who you truly are. The path to divine love is not straight. The zigzag pathway is a repetitive process sending you deeper within to revisit things you thought you understood. This pursuit helps you gain an even higher perspective as you remember your identity. This card indicates that you are feeling weary and not sure if you can continue your quest for divine love. Feeling lost can make you feel like giving up, but stay the course. You can do it. Looking outside of yourself will exhaust you, but don't quit because you have been searching in the wrong place. True love exists within you. The purpose of your intense chaos is to trigger you to gain clarity. Doors may be closing, chapters are completed, leaving you wondering how you will move forward. But know that you are on your authentic path and it is leading you toward great love. It is important to express gratitude for the lessons. And this is when I got into this card of the identity and finding that what we truly are is not our persona, is not our ego, is not even our um, personalities, none of that. But there is a soul blueprint. There is a reason why we came here with what we have. And I go back to that Mars retrograding in Leo, trying to find also what is it that gives you the real motivation to move through life towards your heart's desires and your own true self-expression that will bring something magnificent to the world. And if we have not been putting the energy in the right place, guess what? It's only going to be frustration. And what happens with our systems is that usually there's somebody at the top saying, you have to do this. This is how you survive. It's the path of struggle. And in the gene keys, it's interesting because the programming partner of the 39th gene key is the 38th gene key, and the shadow is struggle. And struggle is exactly that. It's when the energy does not flow, and we just have to fight for the sake of fighting. There is no purpose to life. So when there is no purpose, no direction, and the direction is usually always given here. This is how direction is found. So I will invite you all to gather your spirits again and look back through this whole year and even through the whole passage of the past 18 months where the nodes Aries and Libra have been really active in relationships and this tug between the personal goals, personal paths, and then the how do we deal with relationships, especially when there's things that need to be completed and lessons completed. So my invitation is for you to take stock of this past 2 years and see and look within your relationships. Make a little list of all the positive, amazing things you learn, you have found in your relationships uh, which people and relationships have been really supportive, and what aspects of these relationships have been supportive, and make a list so you can actually see always the glass half full, and take with you the positive of your experiences. And now do the same and look at what the shadows have been, the challenges, the difficulties, and the things that you definitely are not in alignment with people and relational dynamics. It could be certain dynamics that you see that just do not work for you. It could be certain people that they're just not in alignment with you or your values. This does not mean that people are good or bad. It only means that we find more resonance with certain people than others. And when we are really aligned with our path and where we're going, that's why this North Node in Libra has been pulling us towards realizing that very deeply these 2 years. And conversely, this is why we see where we have failed to follow our own personal intuition of what's really right for us. And that goes again for all kinds of relationships. So the exercise, is looking who are the people that have not been supportive of that natural energy, and what are the dynamics. So when you look at that, you can very easily then let go and do your little own healing journey where you will honor, love, and take all the positive, extract the lessons from that, and then you look at all the shadow sides, all the struggles, difficulties, and then you can also see this taught me these things. So from the shadow side, we can extract the lessons. So once you see what was really difficult and what didn't align and why it didn't align, you can say, oh, this was teaching me this, and this was teaching me that, and this person made help me see this. So remember, this is not about blame games, not pointing fingers. It's not about who did that, who does what. This is how we heal those frustrations that we're talking about that can come up with that Mars, Pluto energy that are wanting to burst from inside. The will and the will to act in our own path. But that doesn't mean we need to dominate or brutalize or fight for that if we find the true liberation in our own capacity to choose. And this is why it's about the choice. And our choice comes only and always with our own centeredness. It cannot come from outside. And this is where the struggle has been, choosing from the outside circumstances instead of choosing from within. And this retrograde part, this portion is going to of Mars is going to help us reassess that energy, how we have put our energy out. So when the retrograde passes, we'll be able to go, okay, I'm going to maybe redirect my energy. Maybe this is not the right patterns or the right people. This is maybe not the right things. This maybe I was going in a way that was not supportive of my natural energy. And all of that, when you put it in front of you, you will be able to assess calmly and groundedly, like with this energy of like the Capricorn that I talked about. There is like a grounded capacity to look at these things. So when we are going to take the next portion of action, I would say do not take any action until maybe like life-changing action, at least until March, once this is the time where we're still reviewing, we're still taking stock, so we can see if there needs to be a rerouting in which direction. And so you do this with not like a crazy person just out on a whim, but you do it with really your feet on the ground and with realistic aspirations. And because the energy of 2025 is going to give us such a boost of newness and maybe things we've never thought could even be possible, this is why let's not build the new world in our new lives or our new visions with the old templates. It doesn't work. I think this is a time where a lot of the awakening is happening, and that requires our absolute centeredness. So this is one piece of this puzzle. Now, let's also not forget, I just couldn't help but look at Lilith, also opposing Chiron in Aries. Again, very similar themes where and whenever Chiron is involved, even though it's like a small thing, and Lilith is not, Black Moon Lilith is not necessarily a body, there definitely is an archetypal meaning there of a need for for almost like it's like the rebellion, right? It's like the independence, the deep need for independence, equality, and rebellion within partnerships and social harmony. It's like, how do we do this while still being ourselves and not being shut down? And a lot of it also comes from very ancestral patriarchal um, uh, patternings. A lot of the battles of the sexes also comes from the masculine oppressing the feminine, and this is for like ages and ages and ages. But then there's also the opposite rings through true, like whenever there has been a dominant energy over the other. This is where we have all these struggles, fights, issues, and then we just want to be ourselves. This is the bottom line. We just want to be ourselves, free and safe. So, there could be a deep struggle with feeling dependent on others or needing approval. Um, Rebellions against traditional relationship roles. Again, the man leads, the woman follows, or kind of things like that. Deep yearning for authentic and equal partnerships. And this is why I'm saying that whenever there is an imbalance within the masculine and feminine energies within the self, then we see these imbalances in the relationships with men, women, or any other genders, basically, that create imbalances and polarization. So the invitation is, again, to regain balance within self, within the feminine and masculine energies within self. Can't stress that enough. Is it easy to do? I don't know exactly how to answer that, because I do a lot of inner work and self-reflection, and that's why there's tools like again, like the gene keys or many other tools. Your own astrological chart will also give you so much information about how to navigate those shadows that are what you project in the world. But now this Mars Pluto is being exacerbated. Now, something really positive about this is that within that same framework, we do have Venus and Jupiter in a trine. So that in itself, um, it's it creates also the possibility of expanding the way you also see relationships. There could be also new and exciting um, possibilities. Um, there could be uh, the capacity to enjoy the time together with people. And this is a good time for like Christmas time, because it's almost like the social interactions can become really graceful. Lots of sharing ideas. Jupiter in Gemini is very curious and fun, and maybe wanting to have contact with a lot of diverse people. This is a great time for parties and interactions. So this is also when we can meet either new people or feel really good within social environments. So take advantage of that too, because this is where family, friends, gatherings can foster also a more harmonious setting for conversations, a more harmonious setting for the difficult conversations maybe sometimes that we need to have. So it's not all bad, right? Within the tensions of anger, of difficulty, of self-doubt, of needing to break free, to have more independence, there is also the amazing capacity to to have a lot of grace and fun and extravagant relational activity, feel good, so this is a good time to party, I would say, if you can keep your frustrations at bay, especially because during Christmas time, and I know this is kind of crazy, but at Christmas time, a lot of people go into crisis mode for two reasons. And Christmas, obviously, being a particular cultural and religious, for lack of a word, time for certain people. No, it's not for everyone, but the energy in the field when at the end of the year, with Christmas time, what we call Christmas, is that people get together, and as people gather, there could be two things. First, there's the nostalgia for those who have had really hard and difficult times with their families, loved ones, the loss of people, the loss of friends, the loss of family. So this is when Christmas can feel uh, like a heavy feel of nostalgia and grief. So it's interesting how that could be in the field. So creating a lot of inner crisis, maybe even feelings of loneliness for those who don't have families or have lost families. So there's that in the field. And at the same time, then there's this other joyful, bubbly, exciting, celebratory energy where there's lights and laughter on parties and food and abundance and sharing. So this is just to see how this time encompasses both. And also, when people meet in families, usually what happens? Family dynamics come up. A lot of the time, you can have the best intentions of having a great time, but then, the button pushing, the dynamics, the provocations, the anger, and again, with Mars and Pluto so active, this is what may come up even within this amazing social gathering. So really keep an eye on it. Keep an eye on your own triggers at this time and make them yours. Don't make them about people. The person who gets triggered usually is yourself. People do what they do, and families have their dynamics. But this is a really good time to observe that and say, okay, I can let this go. And and really taking upon me that if I'm getting triggered, I'm the one triggered. Let's look let's look and see why and where that lies and go and do deeper work. So for my personal story that I wanted to share, I've been really having deep emotional bursts of extreme anxiety, which is out of the blue, having, I mean, related to some mm, personal situations. But again, it's all rooted in personal feelings of safety and groundedness. And what happens is a lot of this primal force wakes up when it constitutes like feeling safe and secure. And let's not forget that the Capricorn energy is all about safety. It's about feeling safe. And we will have Mars retrograding all the way into Cancer, which again is about feeling safe, fundamentally safe. And a lot of things have been triggered for me because me personally, I have Chiron going exactly on top of my moon at this time, which is an activating Pluto for me. But again, that's blah, blah, blah. Doesn't matter if you understand or not. I'm just saying that how have I dealt with this when you have archetypal energies waking up in you, like, for example, anxiety, and it comes from a thought or something or an action and something happened or someone said something, and that suddenly brings up enormous amounts of anxiety. This is the great time to allow that to be and really get some maybe some container, some help. What I did for the past like 3 days that I've been dealing with these massive amounts of anxiety, and I can feel them move on my left side and a little bit over here in the back of my heart. So I'm kind of noticing where the anxiety moves and how my body feels, so I can actually sense that there is some imbalance within my own physiology. So, step one, if that comes up and you don't have the capacity to self-regulate by telling yourself that you're safe, that you're okay, that there's the present moment is just perfect, and come back to the present and do a wonderful exercise that I am doing, that RJ Spina created. I really love it. It's like when you're having thoughts and the thoughts are there, and thoughts are not really real. It's only your mind. What's real is just your present moment awareness. And he says, pop the thought. So you pop the thought. I think I already spoke about this, and I found that fantastic, the popping of the thought, because that helps regulate your nervous system as well as taking deep breaths. If you get overwhelmed with emotion, uh, make sure to maybe have somebody that you really trust in your environment, or if you don't, maybe seek some professional help or a therapist, somebody that will hold space for you. Because sometimes, and this is by experience, when the energy takes over, it can collapse the system, especially because the emotional bodies get completely out of whack when it touches very deep wounds of rejection or abandonment, and the fundamental lack of safety that maybe we could have felt as children, when we were maybe left all by ourselves, or unfortunately in our generations where I was raised, there was, conscious parenting was not really a thing. Our parents did the best they could, and you would get the belt, or you would, all that stuff, like, yay, charming, right? How lovely. Imagine you're this little child, terrified. So I was remembering this episode as I got these triggers and this anxiety came. I was like, okay, where is this coming from? So of course I had my partner help me regulate first, so I could express and let the emotions be, because it's not about repressing the emotions, it's about letting them be, not dumping them into people. So first thing, let the emotion be, and help and get some support so that the emotion can freely flow. Two, notice where in the body it is located, so you can actually start addressing the energetic imbalances that can be happening throughout your emotional body and your physiology, so as not to develop an illness, or something that is physically then a symptom. So locating the energy body where that could be, so you can give yourself some energy from who? From yourself. You put your hands in whatever that part of the body is, and you breathe very deeply into these parts of the body, whatever it is. If it's here, you'll go take deep, deep breaths to regulate your nervous system, and allow the energy from your own hands, which are connected to your heart, to move and soothe, what is called, I call this self-soothing. And it's really, really powerful. We may think that doesn't work. No, this is exactly how we hold ourselves. If we were not held as a child and have these kinds of wounds or traumas that might come up, the self-soothing. And if you can do this like every day or whenever the anxiety comes, the issues when the anxiety comes, we don't have, it's almost like we lose all capacity. And this is why it's so important to have these tools available, and maybe someone to help you hold yourself. Because honestly, peeps, no matter how much work I've done on myself and how many tools I've gathered, when these things get triggered, it's it's all the bells are off. And if that happens to people like me who have done enormous amounts of work, well, guess what happens to people that have no clue, and they get in these states? They just project everything outside, become violent, and become like literally crazy and destructive. And these energies can be very destructive at this time if that wakes up in a lot of people. So for myself, I'm giving you like a little bit the step by step of what I do to not collapse, not get sick, and obviously not project this onto the world as anger or destroying relationships unnecessarily or things unnecessarily. We can always do everything with a much more gentle approach, and the healing takes a while. So, step two, I told you, self-soothing. And step three, do not let your mind keep going in a loop of the thought that produces the feeling. Try to move back to the present. And if the energy is still moving, it's because it just wants expression. So let it express, let it sit with it, literally just feeling it, and just observe it as a neutral observer of, oh, it is in this part of the body. Now it moves like this. It moves it shakes. Oh, now it's like it feels like a knot, or now it's really heavy, or whatever it is. And as you notice it, breathe because the breath moves the energy. And because Mars and Pluto, again, are these pent-up energies that are very, very perinatal, primal. When it comes to primal, you can also do primal things like like scream or just move the energy with a lot of physicality. So go for a big run or just exert the energy out, push it out. I personally do tap dancing, which is it's a very awesome way of it uses percussion, but it's percussion in the body. So it's like or percussion, drumming. Percussion gets a lot of energy out of your system because it's literally hitting, but it's not hitting someone. It's hitting something and creating sound and vibration and music. So getting into primal states, this is why also a lot of beautiful rituals and people that like First Nations do, they do their drumming sessions. It's just, it gets out the energy, just moves it out, bam, 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 bam. And here where I live, we actually do hear the banging of the drums a lot of the times where they have these ceremonies. And it's like you can hear the primal essence of that. So when there is primal forces occurring, use primal tools that are going to be beneficial and not destructive. And this is why this video is so important. These energies are going to be really, really amping up in the world. And you, my friend here who are watching this, you are not in control of what others do, but yes, you are in control of what you can do when your own fears, anxieties, primal energies, angers, and triggers come up. And what do you do about it? So I'm just giving you tools. Go for a little drumming session and turn that energy of repressed energy, volcanic energy into something creative. And this is why we have art and music. And again, drumming. And I do tap dancing, which is fantastic, but you don't have to do tap dancing. It could be anything, hitting the ground, moving your body. So that is, I think, something that I wanted to share with you as a very important thing to try during these times. I'm able to self-regulate quite a bit, and even then, still those fears come up. So the other work you can do is deeper work, like inner child work, which is really holding. You can record your own voice, telling yourself, like putting a little audio, a 3 or 4 minute audio, telling yourself in the morning, telling your inner child, imagining literally that you are yourself as a little kid. And again, I was remembering instances of my childhood where my father was, kind of angry at me and something, and they would say, "I am going to give you the belt," those times, right? And I love my dad, like very different human at this point, but back then, that's all they could do. Um, and and I remember running scared and hiding in a little puppet theater we had at home and just staying there for hours and hours. So that memory came back to me and was like, this is interesting how all this energy of survival, of primal survival is just coming through. And survival can also be, I'm going to attack you and I will kill you if it means I need to survive. So you see, this is why these energies of war are so present. I'm just explaining to you what you can do to help ease the collective field. We have a lot of power in the collective field. If we want to see less war in the world, it's not just waiting for it to end. When we do a little bit of this work, the field transforms and helps the peace. So don't underestimate your power as a being that's connected to the fabric of all that is. Okay? It's really important. So again, self-regulation, self-love, self-soothing, and talking to that inner child. So you take your inner child, you put it in front of you, almost like in a meditation, close your eyes. Imagine yourself as a kid, and imagine that kid, when it was scared or it was alone, uh, or threatened or felt really unsafe, you go and you hold that kid as your adult self, as though it was a presence of an angel holding you now, today, and saying, hey, I love you. You are safe. There is nothing to fear. And you can actually see how your own little child self melts in your arms and feels happy and feels safe. So you are giving your own energy to your own inner self that is somewhere in the quantum space happening right now, as though your own inner child is, if you could go back in time, you would be scared and you would feel a warm blanket and you don't know where it came from. Well, in the quantum world, if you do this now, that child back then is feeling that warm blanket of safety and healing and not feeling scared. That's the nature of quantum reality. So if you do it now, it literally changes the past, or not the past per se, but it changes the imprint of the memory. So this is why during these times where we might feel completely vulnerable, and guess what? When you do that vulnerable work for yourself, you are also doing it for the world and for all the children that today are scared, for all the people that are feeling unsafe, that don't have homes, that are at war, that are in zones where there's conflict. So this is, it's even more powerful than making a donation. And I don't say don't do a donation for certain causes, but I'm saying this is enormous, the time you take to do this with your own self and your own triggers. So this has been a really long rant, but I cannot stress enough how important that is, and because I am living through it and I am moving through it, and it's not easy to do, but get help and just do it. Don't stay in the trigger and the anger, because that ultimately just creates more conflict, more problems, and it just ruins our dynamics. So so we can actually enjoy our parties and our gatherings and really have great fun times with people we love. I'm not saying this is going to be for everybody. This does not necessarily hit everybody at the same time. But if it's you, especially if you have any points in Aries, Libra, Capricorn, or Cancer, any planets or points or angles there, this energy might be talking to you, and especially in the last degrees well, actually, the whole thing, because there's energies moving all through Aries and Libra and Cancer and Capricorn, and I mean it's kind of moving um in that cardinal cross as archetypal energies. So well, that was a lot. Okay, so that is our solstice energies, the main solstice energies. Let's see if there's anything else we can say about the solstice, other than then moving on after the solstice. We will have a little bit of, so December 24th, for Christmas Eve, for those who celebrate Christmas. We are starting to have this forming square of Mercury and Saturn as well in a T square with Jupiter. So I also wanted to mention that. Um, and then the Venus and Uranus square. So these two energies are going to be kind of moving along with the current themes for the end of the year. So this would be, so the T square of Saturn in Pisces, Mercury in Sagittarius, and Jupiter in Gemini. This is really about let me see my notes. Oh, yeah, this goes back to trying to stay grounded. This is Saturn pull, especially when it comes to big ideals and big goals, big dreams, aspirations, and also truth, because Jupiter and Mercury is in Sagittarius, and it's interesting how they're both in each other's rulership. So it's almost like Jupiter's not very comfortable in Gemini and Mercury's not very comfortable in Sagittarius, and yet they're also opposing each other. So sometimes what can happen is that either we have too big of ideals, dreams, aspirations, or too much a necessity to speak or boast or um, or assert our truths as the ultimate thing, and our ideas, and even maybe dreams so big that we don't take into account the real things. Like we can have big ideas and almost just share all the amazing visions of the future and how things are going to be great or this or that, or assert in this, I'm going to make this a lot big, this big um movements. Because the this energy of absolute either idealism, and with when there is so a multiplicity of information, also Jupiter in Gemini is gathering and gathering and gathering information and more information, and this is a time where it's very difficult to discern what is true from what it's not. So people might be starting to really polarize into their own sense of truth, which is great. The issue with that is that when we try to dogmatize somebody else and say that what they live and what they experience is not true, then that's what also creates the difficulty. And also in terms of grounding ideas and visions and ideals, I think it's really important to notice that Saturn in that T square is is really making sure that we're not chewing, not biting more than we can chew, literally, that the aspirations are not completely out of our that what we're seeing can be actually grounded in reality, that the things that need implementation can be having a step-by-step process. It could feel as frustration, or as though when you express something, an idea or a truth, boom, somebody goes and just poops on your party and says that can't be done. Nope, can't. No, nope. Nope, that doesn't. Nope, nope. And then you start doubting yourself and doubting yourself and doubting your capacity, or even getting discouraged, because Saturn squaring Mercury is almost like either you focus your energy and your mind into something, or it just blocks you, and then you feel like you're incapable, that maybe your ideas are no good. Like then you get discouraged and then you don't do anything about it, and then ideas and dreams just stay as vague possibilities that never find a fulfillment. But it could feel also, it's like when you bring your big vision of something and someone just says, no, this can't happen, this is not possible, this is not, budget's not there, it's like all these things. Yeah, but how are you going to make the money for this? Da, da, da. So in order to be able to not get frustrated with these energies, where it's just all about the big dream and the big talk, but nothing in the grounded reality, is to go to the polarity of Virgo, and see what would the Virgo energy do, which is the pragmatic. It's basically the practical and strategic, grounded, and that can give you really good results within this energy. This energy is not supporting the one that just throws themselves like a crazy person to do something. Um, and let's not forget that paired with this energy, there's also a square of Venus to Uranus, which what can happen there? Usually during these moments of needing more freedom or personal freedom in relationships, or even exploring different kinds of relationships, or sometimes breaking free from relationships, what can happen is that our relationships get really damaged by a rip. It's the rip in the fabric. It's like, I'm fed up with this, can't do this anymore. I'm just going to rip it and tear it. And then just like a crazy person, go ahead and, I don't know, throw myself into a new relationship that appeared, or into this new thing, or in this new path, without any consideration of impact, without any consideration of procedure. And sometimes this is what is needed. We just need to rip ourselves off from situations if the situations are really not good and we're really feeling trapped. Now, back to Gene Key 39, which is the feeling of entrapment. It's interesting that I just picked the perfect Gene Key today. The feeling of entrapment is a lot of the Venus-Uranus archetype, is the feeling that a relationship is stifling and we need to get out of there. Otherwise, we're going to just suffocate. And and for this to happen, we might project out onto the world, again, situations that are not necessarily the most ideal or adequate, but we'll just take it as the first solution to get out. And then that's how we rip the fabric of of relational dynamics. So if, for instance, under these transits, when relationships are strained, this is the time where a lot of relationships might break because of that, this need for more freedom and more expression and more exploration. Sometimes it's just personal exploration, and coupled with the theme of personal freedom that we saw with Mars retrograding in Leo and the North Node in Aries. Like it's like a theme. What can happen is that we destroy relationships instead of gently phasing out of them. So the invitation is to see, where have I feel, why do I feel trapped? What is true freedom when it comes to relationship? And that the entrapment is also it's a perceived inner sense that we have. It's not really that a person or a thing traps us, or a situation that is not real. What is real is, why have we not made choices that support our well-being, all the while being able to clearly communicate what's important to us? It always goes back to that. How can I clearly communicate? Or how can I make a choice and then really be at peace with my choice? And people can react however they react, but we can still stay very grounded and not blame people for their reactions. So what happens under these transits, what could happen is that relationships go completely, they break, and they don't break really nicely. It's through a crisis. Sometimes it could happen that you meet somebody and then you just go with that person, you just break away, but then leave a lot of loose ends and things unfinished. Um and what I'm sensing is like, this is really important to take into consideration. So we take deep breaths before even addressing this inner sense of entrapment, so we don't project it out into our environment again by damaging our relationships. But if a relationship needs to end, like I said before, how will we do this with a grounded approach? For example, if you're in the middle of an imminent divorce that is just has to happen, and it's been kind of dragging, and this is the time where it's just gonna have to move on or whatever. How, instead of fighting and ripping, how could we look into what's truly important to us, so we move towards what's important to us, what supports our well-being, so that phasing out of what doesn't support our well-being, it's not a rip. And also because the excitement about new possibilities can be also short-lived. Sometimes what happens with this like transits of Uranus to Venus is this just sudden urge just to experience relational activity, like finding exciting things or people that are like super out there, and that, but it's short-lived. But what it does, it again, it leaves the existing dynamics ripped, damaged. So, in this sense, take deep breaths, assess the situation, see within yourself, what is the feeling of entrapment? Like, why are you feeling like this? Where does that come from? And can you ground yourself again in your own center, so you do not feel this sense, and you can more easily navigate what it is that it's not working within your relationships. And yes, sometimes relationships do need to end and do need to move on, especially as these Aries Libra nodal axis is shifting, and we're really closing a lot of karmic things and a lot of karmic entanglements. Like I said at the beginning of the video, when you do your little balance sheet, it's really about yourself. It's about how you grew. It's about how you are now a more well-rounded person. And if we did not extract the lessons from these past 2 years of that nodal axis in Libra Aries, then it's okay. No problem. You'll encounter these again. It comes up, it will come up again, in 9 years, and then in 18 years, it will just come up again. These themes you will revisit them. There's no rush to evolve, really. But you can now also take your personal journey of evolution at your own pace, by the way. And guess what? Nobody is going to give you a good or bad grade because you're evolving faster or slower. Like, nobody cares. The universe really doesn't. It's you and yourself with your own evolution and how you want to experience. In the end, it's all about how do you want to experience your own life, and what are the choices that are supporting the most peaceful and wonderful experiences. That's that's what it boils down to. And how do you want your relationships to be? Because everything is relationship. Everything is relationship. Either it is relationship with people, relationship with earth, with nature, with animals. Everything is a flow of relational energy. We cannot live as isolated things here without relating to anything. So with that being said, how do you want to live your relationships? And that's the question. And hopefully moving into 2025, where there's going to be so much new energy, major shifts, planet, like big movements of complete new energies. And who knows, like, with what we're seeing in the world right now, with becoming more of galactic citizens and things like, again, who knows what's coming? But in the meantime, be the best human you can be. Be as kind, gentle as you possibly can to yourself. And in doing that, extend that kindness, that gratitude, that gentleness with others, and work on those triggers if they come. And if they don't come, good for you. Like, awesome. Stay there. It's awesome. But you know what? At some point or another, they come. So no one is exempt of triggers and shadows. So I'm just giving you my little 2 cents here. Okay, the rant is over. I could say many more things about other things, but I think this was what I really wanted to share. And maybe it's a lot, but I hope you stayed until the end. If you like this video, please feel free to like, share, subscribe, all those things, tap little bell, and even leave a comment about how you've been feeling these 2 years, how you're wrapping up your 2024, and what lessons you've extracted and how you want to move on forward with the lessons learned, and if chapters are closing, because there seems to be kind of themes that are closing karmically as well, also as Saturn uh slowly will phase out of Pisces. It's almost like there's big endings, big endings of big karmic patterns and big general patterns in the world to bring something new, or a new level of human existence. So with this being said, leave me some comments, and I love you, and I'll see you in the next video, hopefully giving you some 2025 goodies and things to look for. Yeah, and then for those who celebrated, Merry Christmas to you all, or Happy Solstice, and for those who don't celebrate, happy end of the calendar year, even though it's just kind of like the middle. But why not? That's how we live. And just be with what is. I love you, and blessings.